Welcome to the HR Huddle. I'm Eloise Shelton of Vanilla Recruitment and founder of the HR Huddle. We specialise in recruiting HR, marketing, accountancy and office roles. Today's guest speaker is Emily Crispin, who is extremely passionate about the improvement of mental health in the workplace. So we thought there's no better place to start than with our HR members of the HR Huddle. The role is rewarding in HR, but relentless, stressful, and people are constantly juggling. So we ask the question, who looks after you when you're spending all of your time caring and supporting others? Well, today we're going to care for you as Emily will give us some great tips on self-care and have a special treat for you all who attend today's session, which I will share at the end. The session today is going to be recorded. If you do have any questions, please put them in the chat box. Welcome, Emily, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Eloise. Yeah, really happy to be with you all for our workshop today. So I'm going to really briefly introduce myself and our workshop today, and we will get started. So hi, my name's Emily Crispin. I am the founder of a mental health training and consultancy company, Honest Minds, and we create honest conversations in the workplace around mental health. Very passionate about employee mental health and it being improved in organisations. And I think HR can be a huge part of that function. So you guys are in brilliant roles to potentially create change, but really important that that change can start with you and you're protecting your mental health, which is why we're putting on our workshop today. I have a diagnosis of bipolar, which I'm really proud of, brings a lot to my training, which I've been doing for many years. So yes, really delighted to be with you here today. Today is going to be a slightly different format than a workshop that we usually would have. So I am going to run it as a workshop, and I'm very grateful to Eloise for being my sort of main participant. So she's going to, really bring our material to life today. So thank you, Eloise. So I'm going to go to my first slide, if I may, to introduce our workshop. So today we are focused on, as Eloise said at the beginning, self-care for HR consultants. So we're going to make yourself the priority instead of everyone else. Bear with me. Oh gosh. Okay. So self-care for HR consultants, making yourself the priority instead of everyone else. We really wanted to put this workshop on because often budgets can be allocated for lots of different teams and you might find yourself supporting others a lot. And so we wanted to pose the question, who's supporting you? So this is hopefully a little bit of time out for you all to concentrate on yourself and have some nice self-care reflections and hopefully some good sort of goals around it as well if it's not at the level that you want it to. You support potentially lots of different emotionally sort of sensitive conversations, which can be quite draining. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And if you've got the structure first off to support you in those conversations, you might feel like you need that open door policy, or there is an assumption that HR are always there to go to about any people problems, which is a huge assumption, isn't it? And that's quite the responsibility, potentially one that you would like to change. So again, we can talk about that a little bit at the end. So let me show you what we're going to cover today. So we're going to think about what actually self-care is, and that can often be related to mental health and well-being. So we're going to have a think about what those are as well. Why and how do we need to practice self-care? So we've mentioned a few reasons already for HR specifically. We're going to develop some practical strategies for maintaining our best mental health. So this is supposed to be a useful, pragmatic workshop and time for you to be creating a bit of a strategy document for yourself. So do feel free to grab a pen and paper from the beginning, really, or open a document on your computer to write down any notes or anything interesting for you. We're going to do some exercises today, and I am just going to press pause on this recording, ask you to press pause on this recording when we're doing them, instead of us sort of waiting around for you, so you can get the most out of them. And again, that can contribute to your sort of practical strategies and any reflections gained from that. And then really briefly, we're going to think about how can we influence our organizations? You know, is there anything we would like to do or change within them to make sure that you, but maybe others in your organization, can have that self-care sort of prioritized. So let's get started, and we're going to think about what self-care is. So Eloise, you know, for you, what comes to mind when we think about self-care? Are there any sort of words or phrases you would have?
To me, self-care is prioritizing yourself, putting yourself first, and looking after your mental and physical well-being, to be able to be at your best.
Thank you. I put you on completely on the spot there, so I really appreciate it. Yes. So we care for lots of other people, don't we, sometimes? And this self-care is, as it sounds, we're caring for ourselves here. So I think of self-care being doing any activities or any sort of strategies and approaches that, as Eloise says, it prioritizes your well-being and your mental health, which we're going to define in a minute. So these could be, as I mentioned, activities that you do, and once you've done them or during them, you know you're supporting your well-being. So you feel like it might have been particularly nourishing or beneficial to you. So this could be in the short term. You know, am I going to have a bath this evening or go for a nice walk at lunchtime to really care for myself? But also it could be long term. You know, am I prioritizing this at all? Is it scheduled into any of my sort of work diaries or personal diaries to do? So it's really sort of having to think about what are the two approaches, short term and long term. So yes, if we look at our sort of slide here, I love this model because it's just so useful. And I talk about it with my kids, my husband. So this is obviously a tank for typically a car. And we've got our fuel gauge here. And unfortunately for this person, we're on empty. And I'll be completely frank, this has probably been me for the last sort of week or so. So we're going to talk about our levels in a minute. But yeah, there's quite a lot going on for me at the moment. And it's just really worth knowing, okay, what is in the tank at the moment? You know, we had the Easter holidays quite recently. Was your tank topped up a little bit there? Or was it depleted? Mine was sort of both. Yes, I did have a lovely holiday, but equally I did find having the children around for about 2.5 weeks quite a lot. I know that I need that time to myself to really connect and experience good mental health. So really thinking about, right, where's my tank? You know, and what's topped up at the moment. So we're talking about well-being and mental health. I deliberately use the words mental health. I think that's really important, just so we can start talking about it like we do physical health and we destigmatize it. So mental health, this could be a workshop in itself, but essentially we all have mental health. There is no health without mental health. So just as we have physical health, we have our mental health that we really want to work out how it's doing. It's a huge umbrella term. So a lot of people look at mental health and they start talking about things like depression, anxiety, but actually those are all examples of poor mental health. So it could be really positive. It could be, a little bit difficult. We need to work a bit harder to get it a bit more level. And so there's lots of other things to mental health, but essentially it dictates how we cope with life, how we doing, how are our relationships or work, etc. And then well-being is part of that. So we can have mental well-being, you know, how are we doing in ourselves? But equally, you could have things like financial well-being, physical well-being, spiritual well-being. There's so many different aspects to it. So self-care, you know, it's definitely sort of fitting in to these really important terms. I'm going to ask you a question. And again, this is the first time that I'm going to ask you to press pause just to answer it, because Eloise and I will keep chatting away about sort of our responses to some of these. But I think it will be useful to have a think about in the beginning. So how well are you today or this week out of 10. So one being sort of dreadful, the other being 10 is great. So we're doing this on a Monday. So I'd like to think we've had a nice weekend, Eloise, and, I'm feeling better than I did probably when we put the workshop on last Wednesday. So I would say I'm at about a 6 because I have got so much going on in terms of building works, etc. What would you say, Eloise? Where are you up to, 1 to 10?
Yeah, I would say the same. I'd probably say I'm probably a bit better. I'm probably a 7. So I'm
Yay.
much better than I was last week,
Hmm.
because I've had a good weekend, but I did spend a lot of the weekend catching up and working. So I'm uh, feeling a little tired,
Yes.
if I'm honest.
Yes. Yeah, I appreciate that. No, I'm holding my hands up completely there. I didn't do this kind of work, but there was a lot of decisions to do that were very boring and required looking at a laptop. So that is definitely work for me. The other useful question to answer is how well was I last week, or how well have I done this year so far? So again, 1 out of 10. We're in April when we're recording this, but whatever we're looking at when you're looking at this, how well have you been during the year so far? So just have a little pause. What would you say for yourself, Eloise, if you think back on either last week we've spoken about, haven't we? So how's your 2026 going in terms of your well-being?
I'd say last week I probably would have been about a 3 because I was
Yeah.
massively overwhelmed. We
Yeah.
I've just implemented some new software at work and it's working really well, but
Mm,
I was bombarded by emails and people. So yeah, I was a little overwhelmed with work last week, if I'm very honest. The year so far, I'd probably say it's been challenging. So I'm
yeah.
still probably about a 6. Yeah, there's lots of great stuff happening, but it is
Yeah.
more that I am looking after myself, and I'm not very good at that.
Yes, great reflection. Thank you so much for being honest. I'm very similar to you. I'm finding this year pretty difficult. I knew I would because I obviously am creating my own business and, sort of growing that as well as doing a house renovation project that I've never once done before. And I'm finding there are so many different decisions. I'm so staunch usually about boundaries, and I knew that they would just have to be blurred. And I'd sort of have to put it in the bracket of work for both of them. But it's difficult. So I'm going to say a 5, which is naughty because I'm usually really good with my well-being and making sure it's pretty robust and it's prioritized, etc. So hopefully you got a useful reflection out of that. We are now going to think about why do we need to practice self-care. So we've spoken about what it is, and we are sort of talking about why it's important, but especially for HR, we are going to think about, for example, if you're sort of having a difficult day or week, or you've had a particularly difficult conversation, or you're supporting someone in what can be a difficult scenario. Are you able to offload to your team, for example, or do you have a system at work? Doesn't have to be in your team, could be someone else, could be the ability to go for a walk outside. But is there a way that you can feel supported at work? As HR, sort of having those conversations, dealing with those many, many stakeholders. So you're a bit different, Eloise. Do you work with anyone where you are? Do you have a team?
Yeah, I've got a team of 10, but as a
Okay.
founder, so obviously I can
Yeah.
talk to them all about recruitment challenges that we have,
Yeah.
or clients or candidates. But when it comes to more employees, similar to HR, obviously there's a lot of confidentiality issues, and
Oh.
but I am lucky. I have got one person in the team that I do tend to talk to if things are challenging.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's great. Yeah, I more or less work on my own. I've got associate trainers. I do networking calls all the time with quite similar people now, people that I've known for a while. So that's a lovely way for me to offload as well. my husband works out of our house as well, so he's my main colleague. So it's really important just to ask yourself that question, is there anyone either in my team or outside of it that I can offload on? So again, we're sort of talking about why do we need to practice it? And I'm going to say, listen, it is a business priority. So we say self-care isn't selfish, it's a strategy. And we want you to be holding space for others whilst not losing your own. So yeah, for the cost of caring not to be at the expense of your well-being, really. HR, many of you can be women, so then you've got lots of different sort of reasons as well there to be practicing self-care extra in terms of maybe dependents that you might be looking after. Women can often be the main child care, the caregiver in the home, but also there's lots of hormones kicking around at certain stages of life. So extra important that we look after ourselves. And then, not to sort of lean on the negative, but really, the cost of not prioritizing your mental, your self-care, that can mean that you're less proactive at work, you're a bit more reactive. It can drain your energy, your confidence, perhaps your time and the space that you're creating for yourself. And it can dull your clarity for all of your different stakeholders. So it's important that we really think about why we're doing it. So we're going to speak really briefly now again about sort of stressors, because that's also a reason why we might need to sort of take some time out for ourselves. So just grab your pen and paper, press pause in a sec, but what are your stressors? So just brain dump what might be for you. Eloise and I, we've mentioned some of ours, haven't we? So should we move on, Eloise? You happy with that? There's a couple going on, I think, for both of us. So we're asking you to write down or type in what can, be useful for you in this workshop. And journaling can be a lovely form of self-care in itself. So I'm glad we're doing it. I wonder, looking at those stresses, what might have changed if you had prioritized your well-being maybe slightly more. I wonder if they would have changed. So yeah, have a little reflection. And we're going to move on to thinking about why this graphic might be here as well. So Eloise, any guesses?
Well, it's that age old, isn't it, when you get on the aeroplane and they say, please put on your oxygen mask first before tending to children or anybody else. And you always think it's so alien to put yourself first and do it. But I think we all know it makes sense. We're still just not very good at doing it.
Yes. I think it's one of those things when it breaks down, you think, oh my gosh, I always should have done it. But like anything, unless we're at emergency stations, you may not be doing it. But it can feel so counterintuitive, as you say, like, oh my goodness, are you really telling me I would do that? Put on someone else, my own oxygen mask on. But if you think about it, if you're crumbling, you're no good to anyone. So let's just, get in front of that and be prioritizing ourselves and our well-being. Okay, so we've agreed it's all very important and we want to mitigate those pressures. So let's have a think about how do we and how could we practice self-care? So these are, as we said, activities that you do that really sort of nourish you and you've done something really good for your well-being. So Eloise, what comes to mind for you, would you say? How do you practice self-care?
For me, self-care is making sure that I exercise, so properly carving out time to do my gym workouts. I self-care. I like to meditate. I have to say that I'm not very good at prioritizing that though. Or I absolutely love going to a sound bath and like yoga. But even at the weekend, I was just pottering with the sun shining. I was pottering around in the garden. The birds were singing, and I just sat and I had a cup of tea listening to the birds. And I thought, and I genuinely thought, oh, this is some self-care. This is so peaceful. This is lovely.
Yeah, that's ace. I'm all about birdsong at the moment. I did a post a couple of weeks ago. It seems to be, I don't know if I'm getting older or a bit more in tune with nature, but yes, it seems to be lovely. And I can feel, I think, quite a primal part of my brain sort of switching off and disconnecting from the digital world while I'm doing that. It's so easy to pop on some headphones, isn't it, and listen to a podcast or whatnot. So I'm really trying to give my brain that break from any kind of, like digital stimuli. So I really appreciate that. I'm similar. I'm happiest when I'm doing something in the fresh air, be it exercise, of any type, really. I had a pizza and a wine with a friend yesterday, and it just made all the difference. So we spoke a little bit about you guys connecting as a community on HRHuddle. But yeah, thinking about, right, who is around me, if anyone that I can connect with. So at this part of the workshop, what I love to highlight is this slide. And if anyone needs it, do let me know. So here we're thinking about self-care. Can any of those activities include these? So Eloise and I have spoken smack bang in the middle of it in terms of talking about exercising. So I think a lot of people know that. And we might know the one relating next to that. So we want to connect with people we know that can be good. I've done this workshop many times and we always agree it can be a bit of a fine line, being really conscious about who tops up your tank, who depletes your tank. Just have a think about that. But things like giving on the left there, doing kind things for others, that doesn't necessarily need to be this sort of big volunteering commitment once a week of, right, I'm going to go and help people in this way. But little acts of kindness and thinking of others, that's going to improve our well-being. And these are all scientifically proven to, improve your well-being, your mental health. So have a look at them, pause it if you need to, and just have a reflection on, all right, my self-care exercises, are they doing anything like that? Live life mindfully. That's what you're talking about there, Eloise, when you're saying, right, I had my lovely coffee. You were sort of focusing on that coffee and what was around you, which is great. Okay, so I might actually come off the slide so we can talk to each other, Eloise. I hope that's okay. So the next question, and we're going to spend a bit of time on this kind of exercise, is really reflecting on our levels of self-care at the moment. So question number 1 would be, did you practice enough self-care this week? So I'm going to change that to last week. So have a look through your work diary, have a look through your personal diary. Maybe did you go out in the evenings or at lunchtime or whatnot? But and Eloise and I have already talked about the weekend a little bit. I always find it's a bit easier to practice self-care on the weekend. So you might need to reflect more on your week so far or last week, depending on when you're listening to this recording. But in the last week, have a reflection. Have I done enough self-care? So I'll ask you to press pause on that. I'm going to move us on to the next question, Eloise, because we were chatting about this last week, if I may. So being honest with yourself, was it enough? And this is where we want to delve into, okay, well, what were the obstacles? So things like time, Eloise, you popped that straight on there last week, and I totally agree. For a lot of people, it is finding the time, isn't it? We work very hard at the moment, what with everything that's going on. We might be in under-resourced teams. You might be the standalone person for HR in your organization. So there's a lot of expectations, I think, that can come with HR. So yes, it's really working out, what stopped me maybe if I didn't do enough care from doing enough. And then, how can we overcome them? I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, Eloise, because you were the first one to sort of put time in to do the self-care. Do you think there's anything that you could do to overcome it?
I think it's planning and being strict. So I will find that I will be, I can make sure that I get all my gym sessions in because I will absolutely plan those in with dedication. So it will be before work, and I get that done first. But if it's anything kind of at the end of the day, I tend to find that's where it slides. So it might be that, I might have a plan to, I don't know, spend some time in the garden, but I've got teenage children who don't drive yet. So they're like, oh, can you take me to the gym? Could you do this? So I end up being a taxi service and that can take time, just running people around.
Definitely.
The cooking, or then I think, well, I just need to do something else for work, so I'll jump back on my laptop. And the next thing you know, you kind of think, well, there was no mindful cup of tea. There definitely wasn't any yoga. I didn't get to just sit and read a book. I didn't even just get to sit. Life just seems to be so fast. So
Yeah.
unless it is absolutely non-negotiable in my way, it probably won't happen.
Yeah, it's so difficult, isn't it? And you're right. We have to be realistic about the fact that, often we're not on our own in a household with no dependents on us. And you can include work as a dependent. You've got people in that company, especially in HR, really dependent on you coming back to them, could be managers, etc., trying to support difficult situations or whatnot. It's difficult, isn't it? And time, I think, is such a barrier for lots of people. I think time management is a workshop in itself. So yeah, really sort of thinking about what your barriers were. I love the planning thing, and we're going to do another exercise next. So this leads us really well into it. So the next question is, if you look at the rest of your week, for example, or early next week, what's in the diary already in terms of self-care? So just press pause when you would like to. So this is really sort of looking at your diary, Eloise. I've put you completely on the spot and we're moving through it quite quickly. But really briefly, if you look at your week ahead, do you think you've got enough self-care in? Would you
Uh,
say?
Probably not, because my diary is pretty chocker for the next
Yeah.
couple of weeks. So my gym workouts are in there because uh they are non-negotiable, so they are
Yeah.
in there. But there isn't anything else.
Yes. It's great. I mean, that's the win, isn't it? The gym workouts. And then it's saying, okay, for anything else, can I be a bit more disciplined? Can we look at it like a business priority? You're going to feel so much better when you have your mindful coffee with your bird song. And it's so difficult, isn't it? Because you get sort of absorbed into different things. I am also not very good at this as well. And I think I've given my diary over to a lot of people, and I need to be more proactive and put some things in. Horse riding is my new thing, and it needs to go in my diary. It's so
Wow.
good.
Yeah.
I know, it's super fun.
Even on a weekend,
Yeah.
I might have a list of things that I kind of want to do, and I'll think, right, okay, meditation. I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna do some breath work, um, or I do something called belief coding, which is that's a seminar in itself as well. So, I have all these wonderful things and plans. I think, yes, I'll get to, but I don't actually get to it because I think, well, I need to do all of these things first. We'll do, we'll prioritize all of the cooking and the sorting and the, whatever it is that needs to be done at home or work, you get those done. And it's like the self-care then is the last resort.
Yes, exactly
You will
right.
treat yourself with that
Mm.
if you've done everything else. Well, lo and behold, you never get to it because you never get everything else done.
No, exactly right. And then it's like sort of having to think about, well, wait there, if I had done something, would I have been more efficient about my whole to-do
Mm.
list anyway? I think I would be, I'm a better person when I take a bit of time out for the other people around me, for the activities that I need to do at work. So yeah, it's interesting. And the other thing to do with this exercise, again, press pause if you want to, is just to have a think about, right, if there isn't enough things in the diary, can I put some extra things in using that reflection about what the barriers might be? Can we be putting it in our work diary? Can we actually be putting a little schedule in at the end of that work diary to say, right, have I done, what I wanted to do? Can you start your meetings at work or in this community, Eloise, saying, right, we're trying to hold people accountable. Let's have a think about if we've been doing things that look after us. And yes, I might be a bit idealistic saying that, but I think if we're educating people around, well, wait there, this just makes sense. Actually, this way, I'm not going to go off on sick leave. I'm not going to be less productive at work. I know I need to schedule it properly. Like any business priority. So I'm going to go back to our slides if I may. and we are cracking on with our next part of the workshop, which is developing practical strategies for maintaining our best mental health. So hopefully you've been thinking already a little bit about, okay, what are my levels of self-care? What might have I heard between Emily, Eloise, anything like that I might nab? And this is going to be the same for the rest of the workshop. So you're going to hear a few bits from me now, some of which will not resonate and you just think, listen, that's not realistic. I know that wouldn't serve me, but hopefully some of them will, and there'll be your own version of it, which will make more sense in a minute. If you would like an action plan from me, a strategy document that will take account of some of the exercises we've done already and have the information on that I'm going to go through, please do let me know. My email address will be with you as part of this recording. So we're going to think about what we can do to maintain our best mental health, and what we do, what happens, when we improve our well-being through self-care. So, and how we do it. So I think we need to speak about energy, which is finite. So really managing our energy. So a little bit like that tank at the beginning of the workshop, really working out, right, what gives me energy and what depletes it. And that might be who gives me energy. My friend yesterday with the pizza, she tops up my tank. But there are definitely people that I know in and out of work that deplete it. And I'm constantly reflecting on, can I be spending less time with those people? And it's really difficult because sometimes you feel like you can't. But you can do this exercise with, even this morning, the work that I've done, has it given me energy? Have I felt quite buzzy and pleased and enjoyed the work this morning? Or has it been really draining? And if it's the latter, then I think with work especially, it's sort of going towards your values and just really asking, listen, is this aligning with my values? In which case it probably does energize you. You're doing the right thing. You might be helping people or whatnot. If it's draining you, listen, we all have to do admin. That's probably the thing that, doesn't really necessarily inspire us. But just have a reflection on, is there anything that I might want to do about it? So our energy is really key. We want to maximize it as best as possible. So just have a reflection on, how you're using yours, because we can't necessarily claw back energy that we're losing, but let's think about how we can best use it. Okay, I'm going to talk about routine. So we've spoken a little bit about it. We've looked at our routine already, haven't we? Eloise and I have been talking about the gym and horse riding, exercise, etc. So we want to think about how to design a healthier work day, for example. So a lot of us will now work from home. So it's saying, right, do I know how best to shut off? We've spoken about that nuance, haven't we, Eloise, about that already. And it can be so difficult. For me, I work for myself. So is there something you can do? I love collecting the kids after school because it is such a clear break for me of, right, I've been working all day. Now I'm outside in the fresh air and that's that. But even if it's sort of, people did it in COVID, didn't they? Walking around their block after work. It was just that circuit break, wasn't it? Are you taking your holidays properly? Are they scheduled in? Work sort of lunch breaks, stricter sort of boundaries with working hours. Are the working hours that you're working best for you? Would you want to start a little bit earlier or a bit later or whatnot? Is that going to best serve you? In which case, could you ask for it? It might be that it's a no, because obviously you're in a function that supports other people. So you might need to be around for them during certain hours, but it's worth asking, isn't it? And sometimes we can't take that massive long lunch break. I often hear about, listen, I grabbed some food, I had it at my desk. Are you working during that time? I really hope not, because you're talking about minutes, aren't you, in terms of saving you work at that point? So can you go outside just for 10 minutes or watch something silly on Netflix while you're doing that? So there's loads of information now about sort of micro breaks, and I can feel it with myself. If I, for whatever reason, I'm having a coffee or whatnot, if I can watch 10 minutes of Netflix during a working day, it's enjoyable, isn't it? So So yes, so just really thinking about your routine and if it's serving you. We already spoke about those 10 keys to happiness. And Eloise has, spoken about her breathing. So I won't do us a breathing exercise on this, Eloise, but there is a really nice one that you can do where it's such a good reset for me. If I put my feet on the ground, I'm sat upright. If I can take 3 deep breaths where what's going in is slightly shorter than what's going out, and you can feel like you're releasing your stresses or anything that's sort of not necessarily serving you, that can be such a nice way. It's portable. You don't have to do lots of different things for it. I think you can do probably 3 deep breaths in about 40 seconds. But that can really reset me if I'm feeling a bit anxious or anything like that. So yeah, breathing is brilliant, long term and short term. So a little bit related to our routine, but yeah, we've spoken about the importance of boundaries. So this is I think our friend Kevin in the American office. So I love this. We need to be thinking about what we can say yes to, what can we say no that really honors your health. So yeah, email free zones, putting on that out of office. So very important. And we've got this whole thing of don't keep calm and carry on. Let's not buy into, right, it's not broke, so let's not fix it. Actually, we're going to prioritize ourselves. And there's only so much we can have on our plate before things sort of potentially start crumbling a little bit. Technology is a separate one as well. It's going to help us with our well-being. It can be a real friend or foe. So I'll be really positive about it and mention some lovely well-being apps like Headspace, Calm. There's some really nice ways. There's some monitors, isn't there, now on your phone that can let you know your screen time and hopefully get you to stop doing it if you're doing it for hours on end. But equally, it can be our foe. Doom scrolling is talked about loads, especially for children. It's not great. So trying to create that boundary with technology, it can be difficult. A lot of the time our work emails are on our phones. Hopefully we've got a different phone for our work, but we might not have. My husband, he's also part of WhatsApp groups for work, which concerns me slightly. So it's just having to think about if the things you're doing to do with work are, really sort of serving you. Any thoughts on any of those, Eloise? So we've run through quite a few bits that can help our well-being in terms of boundaries and managing our energy and routines and things like that.
Well, I think it's just reiterating it. For me, it is routine. It's absolutely routine. And I don't have 2 phones. I just have one phone, which can be really dangerous because you'll be somewhere and you'll think, oh, I've just got 5 minutes. I'll just check my emails. And then you check your emails and that can instantly change your mood when you think, oh God, I've got all those things to do. And you stop being in the present and go somewhere else. So I think it is being strict with yourself. One thing I did do was I took Facebook and Instagram off my phone. So there wasn't, I couldn't do any doom scrolling. And actually that made a difference. That really made a difference because you tend to find that or even turning the color brightness down on your phone makes you less likely to think, oh, I'm going to. So it is kind of consciously putting it down and thinking, no, actually, I need to put this time aside.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great tip about the lighting. I think that's great. Sometimes I realise that I've lowered it and I think, what the heck's going on with my phone? I love that. I'm going to steal that completely. That's coming into my training. Thank you very much. I really like that. Equally, I did a spa day on Friday and I just felt so behind with life. And my cousin was late and I chose very consciously to pick up my phone and do some work emails. I'm the exact same. My work emails are on my personal email, but I left that feeling better. I left that feeling like, right, I've caught up with my LinkedIn messages. I've caught up with my work emails. I'm so ready to have a great day. So it's I think it's just bringing more consciousness to what we're doing, really, and not being complacent with our mental health while we're doing it. So yeah, really
because I
appreciate
think
that.
there are times there's definitely times where I will choose to work on a
Yeah.
weekend or the evening, and I course, whenever I do it, I am choosing to do it, but I'm doing it because I know that actually I'm going to feel better going
Mm,
in tomorrow into an already busy day,
yeah.
thinking I haven't got a load of emails that I haven't responded to.
Yeah. No, and people appreciate that. I just think you've got to do what works for you. Some people will need to wait till the Monday morning to go through. They've got a very strict boundary there. I think if you need to work in order to feel better and get there, then that's okay as well. We're not saying on this workshop, right, you need to be rigid and no work unless you're at work, etc. It's whatever works for you. So we're coming to the end of our workshop. So what I wanted to very briefly ask you guys, and it will be a reflection for you, is you're part of HR. And with this, potentially in a position where you can really educate teams and be asking them to include things like well-being, self-care in some of their routines that we have, we've discussed, Eloise and I. So the question really is, how can we influence our organisations? So I'm going to put some questions to you because this might not be sort of right for you. Let me come off our slides. So let me ask, who feels their organisation prioritises employee wellbeing enough? So it's useful for you as a HR function, but also as an individual. Is this organisation going to support my wellbeing? If I want to prioritise it a bit more than I have. So really asking yourself, who feels their organisation prioritises wellbeing enough? Do people feel safe to take those lunch breaks or finish work on time can be really difficult. I've worked in that office where, everyone raises an eyebrow if you're actually leaving at 5 or
On
whenever your
time.
contract says. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's easier, if people know, listen, Emily's got to cut off, she's got to pick her kids up, then I feel for the people that don't necessarily have that reason who might feel obliged to stay. So I'd like to think things have changed, since COVID, and we have spoken about employee mental health much more than we have done in the past. But it still exists. The economy is tough. As I say, some teams are under-resourced. People want to keep their jobs. So yes, so just have a think about if you feel like your organisation does prioritise it. And then the next question is, who feels they could influence their organisation's culture to improve mental wellbeing if it's not where it should be? And this is a sort of yes, no, it could be a sort of, but it might be don't want to. We've spoken about boundaries. We've spoken about the importance of reflecting on your play. And it might be that you want to come into work, do your job and come home, and actually you don't necessarily want to take the energy to start, some sort of approach or strategy to do this. And that's okay. But it's just worth having a think about. And if it's not you, I wonder if it could be someone else. So just have a think, and it'd be wonderful to help you with Honest Minds if you felt like you would be interested in doing a bit more to support employee mental health. So hopefully they've been useful questions for you to reflect on. And so let me just go through what we have spoken about today, because I think we're nearly at the end of our workshop, which has been really enjoyable to do one-to-one, Eloise. I've never quite done a workshop like this. So we've whizzed through these just because there's only been 2 of us, and hopefully you've used it to press pause as we've gone. But we've thought about, okay, well, what is self-care, mental health and well-being? Why and how do we need to practice it? We've got hopefully some sort of document or some pieces of paper based on practical strategies for maintaining our mental health. We've taken the ones that have been spoken about that we think are going to work for us. And as I mentioned, you're very welcome to get in touch, ecrispin@honestminds.co.uk for a lot of the information that you've heard today, if you want to put it in a bit more of a formal document. And then, yes, just now we've briefly spoken about, listen, would we or could we want to organise actually employee wellbeing in our organisation at the moment? So thank you very much for your time. I've gone through that full workshop with you, Eloise. I don't know if you have any questions, or knowing your community, if you thought they might have particular questions with this. It's okay if it's a no, because this is your second time doing this, but Yeah, what did you think? Were there any questions that you think are pertinent?
Yeah, that's great, Emily. Thank you so much. I think probably what I'd like to do is send it out to people within the HR Huddle mailing list and people that were signed on to the workshop for last week when we had some technical issues, and get them to come back with questions. And obviously they can I will pass everybody your contact details so they can contact you directly. But no, that was brilliant. Thank you. I think the key is we need to prioritize ourselves. We need to make sure that we are looking after ourselves, because otherwise, if we aren't, then who is going to? So thank you so much for the insights, and it was lovely to host you on the webinar. Couple of announcements from me. We did say that we had a special offer for you. So Laura Mayfield of Wild Sauna Club in Market Harbour has very generously offered a £10 ticket for a 60-minute session. So the Wild Sauna Club, if you're overthinking, if you're stressed, if you're not sleeping, if you're feeling burnt out, or if you just enjoy this type of activity, you can go and you can have a sauna and a cold dip. So it's the contrast of experience from the power of hot and cold to help you switch off and reset your mind and body. So I will send you out a QR code for that with more information, but I would strongly recommend that you take Laura up on our offer at just £10 for a 60-minute session. The second announcement is we have got our next HR Huddle live event available and ready to book onto. So I will send you an invite out, and that's on Wednesday, the 10th of June, where we're going to have an employment law update and a mock disciplinary with the wonderful Keely Bajent of KSAB Law. So thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you again, Emily, and I will see you all soon.